So you never need to write down the stuff that's on these slides unless it just helps your brain. This is more to let you know that you're not alone. These are the different ways we can help you during your journey with Viva Engage. So we're on the left-hand side, so we're here. So it's really to understand the business value, understand key steps to getting it enabled in your organization, and then to answer questions for you. We also have additional workshops that are offered. They can be for IT audiences, executive audiences, or a mix. We have different options for deployment if you need help driving adoption. And then if you have blockers, like sometimes there's just features that customers are blocked on. So like also let us know if there's like a reason you can't move forward due to the technology, either a limitation or just a feature that's not offered. That helps us prioritize things for making our product even better. All right, so once again, please let us know. Also, I did publish a link to a form in week 1, and I'm going to share that link again, so give me one moment. But we do have a way for you to directly ask for help, and we are reaching out to your customer success managers, probably the person who invited you to this event, to follow up on those. But we did have, I think, 4 or 5 people respond, so I'm going to share this link again. So let me get the link, if I can find the link. All right, I can't find the link. So I'll get the link at the end. For some reason, it is not showing up in my forms. So it's all good. But we'll get that at the end, and that'll let our team know that we need to reach out to your customer success manager and then get you the type of help you requested. So it's just a way to get a more immediate response. I do apologize. We had some people asking in week 1, but due to some holidays across the globe, it's been a little slow as our customer success managers are getting back in the office. All right, so today we're going to talk about Leadership Corner a little bit. So once again, I'm just going to run through the highlights. We talked about this during the first week, so it's a bit of a refresher. I'm actually going to switch from my slides now over to a demo environment. So I'm going to be going off camera while I do that. Just to let you know, these slides will stay in the PowerPoint deck. So they're there for you to read after the fact. I think they're in the week 1 content as well. So I just want to kind of just switch over to the demo environment. So give me 1 second while I do that. Okay, 1 moment, please. It's not being nice to me today. It's usually the way it works, right? Give a demo. Let's see if it's okay. So if you could let me know by thumbs up or other reactions to let me know that you can see my screen, that would be super fabulous. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, it's kind of not the best design that we have the raise hand feature next to the react button, because we always get raise hands as soon as we do that. All right. So today we're going to talk about leadership. And like I said, I'm going to try and keep this to about 10, 12 minutes max. And then we'll move on to the other portion of our content around actually running a pilot of Viva Engage. So to give a little background, 54% of managers, when surveyed, felt that leadership was out of touch with employees. 74% of those managers said they couldn't influence change. So employees need better ways to connect with their leaders, and leaders need better ways to get their message to the right audiences. A lot of times we see blanket emails being sent out, so like everybody's getting the same message regardless of role in the organization, regardless of audience. And so sometimes those things feel very canned and impersonal. So we have better ways to do that with modern technology. And Leadership Corner and Viva Engage is one of those options that you would have. So it all starts here in the Leaders tab in Viva Engage. So you can see here that this is the content from the leaders. We're logged in as Lydia over here. These are the leaders that Lydia is either following or she's a part of their audience. So as we scroll down, we see different polls, we see different posts. We can also view all of the leaders for Lydia. So these are the ones that Lydia is following by default because it's part of, she's a part of their audience. So she's automatically going to see their content. And you can also see there's followed leaders and all leaders. So Lydia can also follow other leaders and then view all of them to go find people to follow. So you'll see leaders post and announcements across the storylines and communities, so you can kind of catch up with what's top of mind for those leaders. You can also engage in two-way dialogue, ask questions, share ideas, and Ask Me Anything events, and participate in social campaigns to drive business initiatives. So we'll look at these features kind of one by one. So if we look at the settings here, we actually go into feature management. So we want to kind of look at like how these audiences occur. And so we would do this in the leadership identification and audiences. So in this case, we want to add a leader. And in this case, we're going to add, you can see Karen Blair has been added as a leader in our leadership or manage leaders function part of feature management. So we want to make sure that the audiences are set. And so we can actually edit Karen's audience. And so we have, you know, different groups that we can search for. We can also say that this leader is important enough that everybody in the organization should be included in their audience, meaning their posts will be seen by everybody. And so this is a way for your key leaders in the company to actually get their messaging across the entire organization. Obviously, you know, have some judgment. Everybody shouldn't have an entire organization as audience. So like choose those individuals wisely, but it's a really good way to make sure that people are seeing the important messages from the key leaders in your organization. And so if we go back to the concept of storyline, if you'll remember from last week in week 1, we talked about the storyline functionality. And so leaders actually have a storyline. And so just like a person would have a storyline, we now have the ability for a leader to have a storyline as well. So in this case, we're actually going to look at Karen Blair. So she's the leader we just added and set the audience to entire organization for. And so you can see we're still logged in as Lydia, but Lydia is a delegate for Karen. So in this way, Lydia is able to actually create an announcement on Karen's storyline on her behalf. So you can see we're posting, even though we're logged in as Lydia, we're posting as Karen. And so we can start a discussion. You can also see some notes. I hope my screen isn't too small. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. That should be a little bit better. Let me check the chat. All right, don't see any questions or hands raised. Awesome. So we can start this discussion. You can also see this small text that says their audience, the number of people, they're going to receive the announcement in emails, Teams, Viva, Engaging, Yammer. For anybody who might be new or missed the comments in prior sessions, Yammer was the name of our app for the longest time, and we made the decision recently to rebrand everything as Viva Engage since it became part of the Viva family. So over the next few months, we've already started the process, but all things that are called Yammer will eventually have the new Viva Engage name. So it just takes a little time to get all of our apps updated over mobile devices and desktop and web and all of in the Teams app as well, and Outlook app. So like it's kind of everywhere. So just it takes us a little time, but just know that whenever we're saying Viva Engage or Yammer, it means the same thing. Sorry for the details, but people always have a lot of questions about that. So you'll see that the followers will receive it based on their notification preferences. In addition, everybody can see the announcement on Karen Blair's storyline, and then you have settings. So these settings will actually allow you to determine how employees receive this update. So this will override the employee's preference. So if the employee says, I just want notifications in Teams, if you check this box for email, they're actually going to get it in email as well as Teams. So that's just one of those things to use wisely, right? Nobody likes a lot of noise and overload of communications, but there are going to be some, important announcements that are probably worth the additional inbox elements. So that's the option there. And so we can, see this announcement, and we basically we're leveraging video. We're talking about the new products that are announced for the holiday season. It's tagged. It's got a hashtag for Mike and Toso, and so you can see it's really easy to create something that's visually interesting and super high impact with not a lot of effort. So not even as complicated as sending an email, because we're not worrying about the to list, because it's already been defined in Karen's audience in Viva Engage. And so now this has been posted as an announcement, and we know that the announcement's going to be available in Teams, email, like everywhere, right? And so, sorry, my demo environment is not behaving properly. Give me 1 second. So now that our announcement is posted, you actually get the announcement in your inbox as well. So if we switch over to email, you can actually see that you're getting the announcement in your inbox. You've got the ability to click on, like it, love it, have a reaction, comment on it, share, and you don't have to leave Outlook to do that. So if you're somebody who's set up to get their Viva Engage notifications in email, you can interact with it all within Outlook. You don't have to go to the web or a different app to interact with that content. So really, really helpful way to do that. And so regardless of which application you're using, you're going to have the same experience. You're going to have rich video, rich images, rich content across all of those experiences. And then you also have a notification. So you can see that we have the notification in our Teams notifications as well. So if you're like me and you've put all of your Viva Engage or your Yammer notifications in Teams, you now have all of those in one place, and you've uncluttered your inbox a little bit. So if we go back to where we started, and so you can just kind of see, we'll see leadership posts, we'll see all of, different communities, all sorts of different content, and then we see Karen's post that was just made as well in the feed. So we don't just see them by clicking on Karen's storyline. We can get it from email, we can get it in our general feed. So it's a really great way for leaders to get content out there without spending a lot of energy and effort. All right, so we're gonna go back to our PowerPointing. I see stuff in the chat. Let me go see if we have questions. Okay, so this works to answer Andrew's question. This works everywhere. So it doesn't matter whether you're in Teams, Outlook, web, etc. Let me get my PowerPoint loaded back up. Okay, sorry, my camera was being wonky. All right, we're good. So yeah, it works everywhere. All of these capabilities are available on every Viva Engage or Yammer experience. And then, so this particular functionality that we talked about for leadership, it is specific to the premium license. So I would consider it an add-on to your Microsoft 365 license. So that's really the only cost consideration. So we're going to fast forward to here. All right, so that's kind of the leadership quarter element. I'm going to go back to the slides for the rest of the things that are kind of related to leadership. So we have the ability to host Ask Me Anything or AMAs, if you've seen those on Reddit or other consumer social media, but we even host them as part of our tech community for Microsoft, where you can attend AMAs for different technologies we have. And so it's moderated question and answer, and it's all text. So rather than having a live event with video and meetings, this is actually a way for people to submit questions and get them answered by your leaders. And you can actually kind of see, people can upvote questions, you can moderate the questions that come in to make sure they're appropriate, and you can just kind of see what's on people's minds. And it's a great way for employees to engage with leadership and vice versa. You can see here, these are all of the AMAs for this particular person. We still have Lydia's profile up. And so you can see all the ones that are scheduling. Some of these are bi-weekly. So, maybe you host a bi-weekly or monthly one for like new hires, right? So people that are new employees, have HR or human resources or some part of the organization have a monthly learning session for just like the ability to ask random questions that you might have as a person new to the organization, but all sorts of great applications for these Ask Me Anything events. The next element is actually campaigns. And so a campaign is all centered around a hashtag. So it's really around driving excitement around business goals and objectives. They can be 100% business related. They can also be other things that your organization is doing. For Microsoft, October is our giving campaign month. So like in October, we will have a social campaign around our giving campaign. And so we'll have goals for volunteer hours. We'll have goals for funds raised, for donations to different charitable organizations across the globe. And so this is the first time this year that we'll be able to use Viva Engage to do that. So super excited about that. You can see like your goal tracker, and then people can use that hashtag all across communities, storylines, anywhere in Viva Engage. And that way you can actually like share, we had a fundraiser, we had a food bank, drive for donations, and we packed boxes. And so whatever those things are, to actually, real time share what you're doing and, keep people energized. Could also be maybe a goal you have for like a new product that you're launching, or business initiatives, could be cost reductions, could be whatever, is of importance to your company at the time. But like just a way to get people, get that visibility of the importance of that, and then see the progress that you're making, because that always gives us energy when we can see like that we're moving forward and we're making progress. And so this is what that campaign page looks like in our sample here. They have a dedicated page. You see all the discussions. You can see pinned content, so it could be videos, documents, whatever. You can see the executive sponsors. So if there are leaders in your organization that are kind of responsible for this initiative, you can, they're there as well for visibility, and you can follow the campaign. So then you'll see those campaigns within your feed in Viva Engage. And then last, to talk a little bit about analytics. We all know that measurement is important. It lets us help us understand if what we're doing is effective. So in this case, we're talking about communications, collaboration, connection across the organization. So this lets you understand the people you're reaching, the level of engagement. So people that are like liking your content, replying to your content, following you, really helps you understand as an individual and as a leader, what the impact is. If you're posting things and nobody's following you, if nobody's replying, they're not engaging, then like maybe you change the way you deliver content. Like maybe it's text-based, maybe there's no images or video. And so maybe like that gives you an incentive to like maybe change the format to get more people interested in what you're posting. Or maybe it's just the terms you're using. Maybe it's not like the right wording. So it's great to have, this feedback so that you can continue to fine tune your process. And Andrew, to answer your question, this is all part of this is premium, and part of this is included with your Microsoft 365 license, the analytics. So I do have a slide that covers kind of the boundaries between what's included versus what's an add-on, but you do get some analytics with your existing licensing. And so you can see here with the analytics, you can see sentiment in your audience. So like we're using machine learning algorithms to basically identify negative, positive, neutral wording so that you can kind of understand how the audience is receiving content and their feelings on it. You can see the most popular themes. So you can see there work-life balance, Focus Fridays, holiday parties, COVID. I'm hoping that COVID has become a much smaller part of all of our top themes today. At least it feels like it is. But it's just helpful to understand what people are talking about and what their concerns are. So we're using Microsoft AI and machine learning to identify those themes, so managers can actually understand what their employees are talking about, what they're concerned about, and maybe take action on things that, if there's negative sentiment, if there's things that are top topics that are areas of concern, then they can take action to address them. And so this is another way to kind of eliminate the problem before it becomes a problem. And so last, on the analytics side, is we have the ability for those campaigns we discussed a few slides back. You can see your campaign analytics. You can see, the reach, the followers, people who posted, and then you have the top conversations. And so that can be a great way at the end of your campaign, when you're done, to kind of share the highlights. So you can see like the most viewed conversations, the most reactions, the most comments, but like you'll find the things that pique people's interest the most, and you'll be able to use that as you close out your campaign and hopefully report on successful outcomes. All right, so we already did the demo. So I'm going to pause there to see if there's any more questions, but I'll get the licensing slide. Well, let me grab that really quick. I think I have it in the week 1 deck. And I will grab it super fast. I say I'm going to grab it super fast, but apparently I've had a lot of PowerPoint open lately. All right. Give me one moment. I'm going to go get you the licensing slide. All right, I found it. 1 second while I open the deck, but I'm going to post the licensing slide for you in the chat so you have it as a reference, and it helps you understand what's included versus what requires the premium licensing, because that's always important. There we go. All right, sorry, that slide deck has like 60 plus slides, so it's a little slow. All right, so that is in the chat, and it was from the week 1 deck as well. So hopefully that helps a bit with the questions. All right, if there's no more questions, I'm going to move on to our second half of the content. So this is from week 1. I'm going to go a little, actually, it might have been for week 2, so I may have to, we'll fix my slide before I publish. But I think we covered this last week, and so I'm going to go a little faster here. So when we talked about this last week, when you're choosing your pilot group, so this is all about, let's say your company has 50,000 employees. We don't want to test on 50,000 employees all at once. So in this case, we might say, let's pick 500 or 1,000 people to use Viva Engage to start with, and make sure we have the right change management, the right training, user materials, communications before we roll out to all 50,000 employees. So kind of key things here, when you're choosing your pilot participants, you want to make sure you have the right stakeholders and participants. You can always add more people during the pilot, but make sure you have broad representation. So that's different organizational groups or functions, different roles. So like frontline workers, knowledge workers, executives, just, making sure you're representing people across the organization. Other key segments, one of the things I always think about is generations. So I'm a Gen Xer, I'm old, but we have this broad range of different generations. Some of them like to read, some of them like videos, some of them are going to use their mobile device, some of them are going to prefer a desktop. So making sure you have all of those segments represented is super important, so that when you roll out broadly across your company, you know that you've taken all of your different employees' needs into consideration. Also make sure that they're open to trying new experiences. Don't invite people that are really change averse to be part of your pilot group, because number one, they're likely to just be frustrated and not engage well. So wait until the full rollout to include people that are just very resistant to change, resistant to technology, resistant to new technology specifically. And then also make sure the people that you invite have the time. So they need to have time to use it as part of their daily job. And they also need to have time to provide feedback. So if you're going to run a pilot for a few weeks, you want to make sure that these people are going to use it. When we say use it to do their job, we want them to use it to do their job. So we're not asking them to create nonsense posts and just test things. We want them to use it maybe use it where they were using email before, or in some cases Teams before, thinking about this is the place we want to put these types of posts or announcements. So you're asking them to just, change their habits a little bit to use Viva Engage. Set the expectations. So I won't read through all of these things here, but just making sure that they understand what the dates, the device types, the app experiences. As I mentioned, there are kind of a lot of options, so you may not support them all as an organization. So just make sure they understand which ones that you recommend using. We have a user guide. It's a PowerPoint deck, so you can actually customize it for your organization. You don't have to use it as is. And then we recommend using Viva Engage itself to support the pilot. So having a support community, having a pilot community, and actually having a champions community as well. So having all of those things communicated and set up front, so they kind of know what the rules of engagement are. Super critical. Somebody's going to need to support this. It's a new technology, or at least new to some. And so make sure that your support team has the right training and content. There's some links included here in the second point. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, we have some training, we have workshops available, so we can actually help get your support team up and running a little bit faster as well. So we talked about champions communities in the prior sessions. In an ideal situation, you already have a champions community that kind of helps with organizational initiatives focused around technology. So you don't have to create a new one. If you don't have one, you could consider creating one. But your champions are going to be kind of your decentralized, it'll be partially support and partially just excitement and advocacy, or evangelist, if you will. So you're going to make sure that they have some training. Once again, we've provided some great resources here in the second bullet point. And if you have them, you can actually assign one of them to each of the pilot, a group of pilot participants. So like your employees that are in the pilot, group them up and assign them to champions, so that that way those champions kind of have responsibility for helping those people during the pilot. And then we also recommend giving your champions early access so that they're in Viva Engage a week before your other employees. So we've talked about, in the prior sessions, we talked about the champions, we talked about, we just did a review of kind of pilot planning part 1. So now we're going to get into actually running the pilot. So one of the most important things is to kind of begin with the end in mind, understanding what you want the outcome to be. So one of the things we like doing is doing before and after surveys. So super simple, like this does not need to be complicated. I use Microsoft Forms to build a survey like this. And it's basically asking for 4 questions. You can obviously modify, add your own, change them up, but basically understanding the current, where employees are currently before the pilot, whether they use Viva Engage or Yammer at all, what devices or app experiences they use. So it's web, mobile, Teams app, Outlook app, like where they're using Viva Engage or Yammer, to rate their level of experience on a scale of 1 to 5, you know, just like, or low, medium, high, doesn't have to be super complicated. And then ask them to rank the benefits from most important to least important. And so this will actually give you an idea of like where their focus area is. Like, you know, some people might be really interested in building a personal brand on storylines. Others might just want to make sure that they're up to date on news and announcements. Some people might like the follow ability. They might want to actually follow people that they're interested in just to see what's going on. And then also getting advice or questions answered. So like one of the biggest things that I personally use it for is asking and answering questions. So like that's my place to go when I have questions. And then I also participate in a few communities around Viva to make sure that if I can answer questions, that I do so. You know, I'll check in every day or two to make sure that if I can't answer the question, and getting people connected, tagging subject matter experts to make sure that people are getting their questions answered. So like it's helpful to understand what's top of mind for employees kind of going into the pilot, because that may change after the pilot experience. So in order to run the pilot, especially if you're talking about 500 or 1,000, so the answer is, to Andrew's question, and you've had great questions today, by the way, so thank you. It could be both. Like, so you can do it if you're not using Yammer or Viva Engage at all. If you're wanting to like try out the premium features, and there's like, we have kind of a modified trial for that if you're interested, but you would pilot that as well. And so let us know if you're interested in that specific scenario, because we can connect you with the team that sets up like the trials of the premium features. But either way, like the pilot would apply. So it's just kind of what you would have your employees testing might change a little bit based upon whether you're completely new or not. Hopefully that helps. So talking about the support process, you need to have somebody, you need to have multiple somebodies probably ready and able to answer questions. So you want to make sure that you determine the channels that you'll provide support for this pilot. Especially if Viva Engage is brand new to your organization. Because if it's not, then you probably already have those support channels in place. Is it going to go through your service desk or help desk? Is it going through your Viva Engage support community, the champions? So like understanding the different people that would be able to provide support in the systems. If there's multiple channels, you would want to identify the escalation path. And so like level 1 might be, I post a question in this community within Viva Engage itself. So maybe call it Viva Engage support, and I tag, you know, their assigned champion. So let's say the champion can't actually help. Maybe there's a problem that requires administrator, assistance or support. So they're actually going to tag the service desk or an admin to help with that. And then if they can't help, then maybe they're like actually working with their team to, escalate to Microsoft. So just really understanding like what's the process for making sure that people get their issues resolved. Days and hours of support, kind of basic service desk stuff, making sure that if you're running a pilot and it's not 100% rolled out to your organization, maybe it's just there during business hours. So maybe it's not 24/7 support like you might have for other systems. Point 4 is tracking. So making sure that you have a way to track requests for help. So it could be, do I have my existing ticketing system for my service desk? It could be something as simple as a SharePoint list or an Excel spreadsheet. If you're doing something a little bit smaller and informal, really up to whatever tools you have in place to do that today. And then last, just a basic report. And the only reason for that report, and it could be in your service desk system, it could be an Excel sheet, really anything, but it's just to understand, like, if you run a pilot of Viva Engage for 3 or 4 weeks, you want to understand, like, what types of problems did I have? Were they resolved? Who had to get involved? Is it just a lack of training materials that we need to improve? Do we need to do better communications? So just once again, to understand like anything you might want to fix before you roll out to everybody. As we mentioned, we advocate using Viva Engage to do your pilot of Viva Engage. So we recommend creating a pilot group community. So these would be your employees that are in this pilot group would be added to this community. So it wouldn't be a public community, it would actually be a private community. Most of our Viva Engage communities are public. But in this case, we would say, you would just add the people in this pilot group. It can be temporary. So like you could just leave it there during the course of the pilot. And then once you've conducted the pilot, gotten the feedback, you could actually get rid of it, delete it, doesn't need to be there. You could also just rename it as a Viva Engage community. And so like maybe that's your place for talking about the technology after the pilot's done. So really is going to be an organizational preference. The community would not be for support requests. In a prior step, we said you should have a Viva Engage support community if that's the way you want people to get technical help. So kind of not just from the service desk, but they could be asking questions of other Viva Engage subject matter experts or champions, just people that are familiar with the technology. So once again, employees helping each other. So you kind of reduce things that get escalated to your service desk. The purpose there is for people to share their experiences. So this isn't for support. This community is for what do I like about it? What do I not like about it? What are my favorite features? What things do I wish it would do? But like all of those things that they want to talk about, like this is a great place for them to like use Viva Engage to share that feedback. And so the last point is to that. So like, establish that behavior of using Viva Engage for that purpose of sharing their experiences, because then you get them accustomed to like sharing their experiences in Viva Engage. And so then they'll start to use it for things besides just this pilot test of Viva Engage. So this is kind of an example pilot communications plan, and it's just kind of a set of tactical activities. There's probably more. We have a full adoption guide. I do have a link on the next slide to that has like the full our full adoption guide. I customized this specifically for a pilot. So it's basically, you would create 3 communities, one for your support team, one for your pilot group, and one for your champions. Remember, your champions are kind of those evangelists, those subject matter experts that are going to be that informal level of support, and they would be your advocates in your company. And you may already have them today for other technology initiatives. You would want to add your support team to the Viva Engage communities at T-2 weeks. T-2 weeks, you would send a reminder email to your champions with links to learning content. At T-2 weeks, you would also send a pre-pilot survey to the employees in the pilot group. So once again, getting that baseline for where they are for knowledge and feature importance and what devices they want to use Viva Engage on. And then a week later, you would add your champions to Viva Engage communities, send a reminder email to the employees in the pilot group with links to learning content so they get a week's notice. And so then you launch. And so you're adding your employees in the pilot group to communities, pin the app in Teams, but just for those employees in the pilot group. And that way they can get their notifications in their team's activity feed, their notifications. We recommend hosting at least a lunch and learn session on just kind of the basics using our training guide. It's a really, really simple PowerPoint slide deck that will walk people through the basics of what they would want to do. And then, have some of your key stakeholders sharing and pinning announcements in communities to spark activity. So obviously, Viva Engage is as successful or unsuccessful as our employees and community leads make them. So one of the things is communities generally have owners. And so those owners during your pilot, you would want to make sure they're actually posting content on a regular basis to make sure that people see that content, they react to it, they find value in it. And like, once again, it's like that content maybe is moving from email, maybe it's moving from a team. It's just, coming from somewhere else. But this is just kind of the best way to have that great experience. And thank you, Vishal, for answering the questions in the chat. So this is a sample timeline. I will just say it's a sample timeline because for customers that were already using Yammer, for example, like they don't need to do all of the stuff up, like the first 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks kind of don't really apply. So they would only need to do a little bit of work to actually turn on like the Viva Engage app and Teams. So like this timeline doesn't need to be as long as it looks. I don't like to scare people off. Everybody's timeline is different. So we do recommend a 3 or 4 week pilot only because you need time for conversations, you need time for people to do things and have things to share and post about. Obviously a 1 week pilot wouldn't go very well. So 3 to 4 weeks is kind of our happy place with pilots. It's enough time to get feedback and meaningful use without delaying too long. And then obviously you want to take just a small amount of time, maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2, but time to actually take all of the feedback that you got, maybe update your training materials, your communication materials, and then you go live, and then you actually roll it out to the organization. And so this is the link here. I will paste it in the chat as well. I think you should be able to click on it directly from the slide, but that's our actual adoption guide that will take you kind of step by step with rolling out Viva Engage. And once again, you don't have to do this on your own. We are there to help. Oh, I did not mean to do that. Okay. Okay, awesome. So, so basically running the Viva Engage pilot. So we talked about the timelines, the communication plans. Mentioned 4 week pilot is really suggested because you have enough time to use it regularly and share meaningful feedback. Some tips for keeping people in the pilot engaged during that 4 week period, have weekly polls to get feedback on a particular feature, tag subject matter experts or SMEs to ensure that questions are answered in a timely fashion and by the right people, right? Share the top 3 to 5 questions and answers each week. So if you have like things that are, getting lots of reactions, lots of replies, lots of comments, like take those top 3 to 5 questions and like let people know, hey, this is what people are talking about. These are questions that were answered that people found really valuable. Send praise. I think this is something we don't remember to do enough because we're all probably overloaded and doing a lot these days, but send praise. Like this goes a little kindness goes a long way. Your support team, your subject matter experts, your champions are probably going to be doing a lot during the pilot. So absolutely, call out exceptional efforts with praise, and that makes people feel appreciated and more likely to continue contributing. And obviously, it should go without saying, but you can use praise for other scenarios than just the people supporting your Viva Engage pilot. If people are doing great work in other aspects of their job, like absolutely use that as well. And then last, share links in your pilot community group from other communities or storylines. So if you're seeing things in other communities and people's individual storylines, share a link to that in your Viva Engage pilot community that you've set up, so people can see like these are the great things we're seeing as part of our pilot, and this is really what we hope the best for Viva Engage at our organization will be, and like that kind of gives people an idea of like this is where we get the value, this is where it gives us business benefit. And then last, monitor your support channels. So make sure people's inquiries, requests for help are resolved so that they don't just sit out there. If somebody asks a question, people need to be moderating those questions to make sure they're getting answered, because otherwise people have a very bad experience and they're not going to have the warm fuzzies towards Viva Engage and towards the technology in general, because they're going to feel like they're not going to get help. All right, so we're almost at the end, and I'm amazingly reasonably on time. So send your survey to your pilot employee participants after the pilot. So we recommend reusing the 4 questions from the pre-pilot survey, because you can actually compare the before and after. So what they thought their top priority from a feature perspective was could change. They might find that they liked using a different app experience maybe before they were web and they like Teams now, or vice versa. So you can actually see the change in that information. Ask people if they had any issues during the pilot, during that 4-week period. Find out what support channels they used, what types of issues they encountered, and then also, was it resolved? So that's going to help you understand, like, was your pilot successful? Did you have problems getting questions answered? Did you have problems getting issues resolved? So, like, obviously that's something you would want to address before rolling out to everybody. Making sure the learning content prepared the pilot participants and the champions to use Viva Engage. So if there's anything in the content that's missing, that's something you would address before rolling out to the organization. Obviously, you're not just testing the technology, but you're testing your processes and documentation and learning as well. And then just kind of a free-form text field. Ask them if they have any suggestions for changes. So, like, just give your employees an opportunity to say, hey, I think this would be better if, or I didn't like this. And it's just a great way to find things that maybe we don't think to ask the question of. And then last, at the end, you can actually, for your last question, you can actually have people rank the usefulness of the features. And so this way it actually helps you understand, once again, what people found the most value in. And maybe that's where you focused your launch focus on, is, the things, maybe you take your top 3 items that come out of here and, make those the focus of your learning content, your lunch and learns, kind of making those the highlights of your pilot. So that's it. Once again, we're not giving you this content just to say good luck with that. So please reach out to your customer success manager and us for help. We're happy to help you plan deploying, doing a pilot, full rollout of Viva Engage. So you're not on your own. But this is just really meant to help you understand kind of the effort. As I mentioned, everybody's timeline is going to be different. Some companies, it's probably just a matter of, a few weeks. Others, it could be a few months because they've got other internal change management things they need to address. All right.